15 brave travelers joined forces to explore not only the heritage sites of Methodism, but also the culture of the United Kingdom, an area that gave birth to our nation as well as our denomination. Come with us now to the rectory at Epworth, England, where Samuel and Susanna Wesley lived and where John and Charles Wesley were born.
Down the bottom picture, John Wesley was rescued out of a window by the locals forming a human ladder. Now, John Wesley at the time was 5.5 years old, and his mum, Susanna Wesley, said at the time that it was like a brand being plucked from a burning fire, and he had been saved for something better. Hence we now have the Methodist religion throughout the world, really.
And I think this psalm really speaks to Wesley's theology, because his theology was that no matter who we were, no matter whether we were a miner, a coal miner, or a peasant on the street, that God still cared for us and loved us. And so I was thinking about Wesley's Aldersgate experience, which we're going to look at when we get to London, and his heart being strangely warmed. And he, even in his description of that experience, he says, I felt my heart strangely warmed. I felt I did trust in Christ alone for salvation. And I was given an assurance that he had taken away my sins, even mine. And it's that phrase, even mine, that again reiterates that Wesley's theology was no one is outside God's care. And God's hand holds all of us up.
Susanna Wesley developed a system of educating her children in her kitchen, including John and Charles. Samuel Wesley was the rector of St. Andrew's Anglican Church in Epworth, and we had the opportunity to visit this historic site, which still serves actively in the community today. The church is proud of the artifacts that it treasures, including this chalice that was presented to Samuel Wesley, and we had the opportunity to hold it as well. This chair presented to Samuel for his years of service as rector. Here is the baptismal font where John and Charles were baptized, and here the grave of Samuel Wesley. Lynn Kohler tells us the story.
This is the famous place in Methodist history. In this location, the pastor, John Wesley, gave a famous sermon. When the church at Epworth refused to let him preach from inside the church, he came outside to this site where he preached to crowds of people. This particular site is important because this is the grave of his father. He stood here on this stone. That is why this is an important moment in Methodist history.
John and Charles Wesley were both educated at Oxford University. Here we see scenes from Christ Church College, where John was educated. And it was here that he and Charles joined the Holy Club, which focused on knowledge, piety, and action. John later became a fellow at Lincoln College at Oxford University. And we visited the Wesley Room, which is the office where John taught his students. And we also walked through the quadrangle where he shared time with his students and visited the chapel where he taught and worshiped with his students. Oxford is still a bustling university town, and we were able to walk around the streets and to experience the culture of this place. Our visit to the new room in Bristol was very special. It was here that John Wesley was able to meet with other clergy. It was here that he was able to lay the foundations for the organization of the Methodist Church. It was here that he was able to put his thoughts, guided by his mother, Susanna Wesley, into practice and into the principles that became the Methodist Church. Again, Lynn tells the story.
Welcome to Bristol, England. In this room where I am standing, which is actually called the New Room, it is in a famous part of Methodist history as the place where John Wesley established a place of worship for his message of the gospel to be shared. His message was that Jesus was for all people and that God has a plan for everyone.
From Epworth to Oxford to Bristol, and finally we came to London. Each flag here represents the nation of a member of this church. These two windows have great meaning in the life of this church. Here is Charles Wesley writing a hymn. And here we see John and Charles sharing together after their heartwarming experiences. And this window portrays John Wesley preaching out in the fields, preaching to all the people, not excluding anyone from hearing the good news. After worship, we were able to explore around the church and then move on to the house where John Wesley died, which is located right next door. We visited Foundry Chapel, which is part of the church, where Holy Communion was celebrated every Sunday. In Foundry Chapel, we found the organ that Charles Wesley used when writing hymns. And behind the chapel, we found this garden leading to the site where John Wesley is buried, right in the heart of the city of London.